Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest in the For Good Cause webinar series. Really appreciate you being here. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to get some education from us. Please say hello in the chat. I'll get us started here. I'm saying hello from For Good Cause here in Kennesaw, Georgia. Feel free to say hello. Just a few housekeeping things here. This will be recorded. I typically send out the recording. If not tomorrow, we'll get it out to you by Monday. Please feel free to put any questions in the chat as we go along. I think we'll have time at the end to answer those. We want to start just with an introduction. First, I'll start with myself. I'm Ronald Pruitt. I'm the president and founder of For Good Cause. I do see some clients here. Carol, I think Patrick's here as well, so appreciate you being here. If you're not familiar with For Good Cause, we are a fundraising platform for small to mid-sized nonprofits that specializes in helping you earn recurring revenue through monthly giving. And we work with nonprofits all across the U.S., and you can find us at forgoodcause.com, and I hope that you will. Now I'm going to pass it off to who you're really here to see. It's Carolyn Salvador from Momentum One. And just very excited, Carolyn, to have you on today. I got to see one of your trainings last year where you did a little bit with AI and was just very fascinated. I think this topic is something that's on a lot of people's minds. How can they use this? So I'm really excited to have you in today to talk about not just using it, but really making it a strategic partner. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I am super excited to talk about this topic. It is something that I have dove into for the past 3 years. And I just think for nonprofits, that are doing so many things, this is the way to do more to move your mission. So quickly, just a little bit about me. I have a consulting firm called Momentum One, and I have 25 plus years. That kind of dates me in the nonprofit leadership, about 15 years running nonprofits, taking small nonprofits and doing great things and growing revenue. I've owned businesses, and so I've had kind of a diverse background, but I am really truly an AI enthusiast and early adopter. And I've taken, I think I told Ron, 150 plus hours of AI training. So I'm not just dabbling in it. I really am trained in it, and I'm excited to share it with you. I live in a suburb of Atlanta, and I've been married for 36 years, and I'm a new grandma. So that's just a little bit about me. So excited to share with you. I want to just kind of share a little bit about Momentum One. We are a fundraising consultancy. We work with small to what I'll say emerging nonprofits to help grow your revenue and do extraordinary things. And we've been in your shoes, so we know what it's like to be strapped, which is why AI is really important. And we build partnerships with you to be able to help you grow and diversify your revenues. So a little bit about here, everything we do from revenue diversification, lots of great communication work, strategic planning. So if you're interested, love to hear more, you can scan the QR code, and my email is in there so we can chat and I can learn more about you. So let's just dive in. So Ron, if you don't mind, you're going to throw that survey up there. Love to hear just a little bit right now about what AI looks like in your world. How are you using it? So kind of share, if you would, what you're currently using it for, if you don't mind. But today we're going to kind of run the gamut of talking about how maybe you are currently using it, but also, how can you really leverage the capabilities to do more and to maybe broaden what you're doing? Because a lot of people, I think, are sitting with it around content creation. So I think we've got a few in here. It looks like some people, research and strategy, not using yet. A couple different tasks, that's great. And content is still king, I see here. Don't see anyone coming in on grant writing a proposal, but I think that's really important. So if you get a chance, take that. And we're going to cover a lot of this right now. I'm not going to get too techie with you, but I just, when we talk about AI, we're really talking about large language models. And so large language models are, the ones that you probably know, ChatGPT, Claude, and I'm going to show you some more. But they're really, they're generative AI, and they're built on training. And then a lot of them are built on learning from how you are talking with them and engaging with them. And what we're going to really talk about today is how you talk to them is their language. And so you've got to be able to understand how you can get better outcomes from our large language models by giving better input. So let's talk about what's available and out there right now. So I know everyone probably knows ChatGPT. It's kind of become like the Coca-Cola of soft drinks, right? It's kind of a generic word now for us. But there's so many great models out there. And I actually think there's some better models than ChatGPT. So I'm just going to highlight a few and tell you why I think, where their strengths are. First of all, there's a tool called Perplexity. Now, let me take a pause. You can get most of these for free versions of them. I'm going to suggest that when you play around, look, test drive a free version, but absolutely get a paid version of the one that you like the best. And we'll go into why that's so important in protecting your information later on. Because when you put something in a free version, it will train on your inputs, and you don't want to be able to do that. So Perplexity, I love because it's a really, really great deep research tool. And you can search the web, and where a lot of them are trained models on past, so they don't have the current. ChatGPT doesn't have current. But I think ChatGPT is another great one, and I'm going to show you because it can do image generation. It has agent mode, which really gets deep into helping you. Gemini is a Google tool, and so it has an integration, and that's another great reason to use it. Claude, which is by Anthropic, is really my favorite. So you're going to see me demo that a few times today because they have what's called Claude Projects, which are also like custom GPTs, and they have nuanced reasoning. So they can actually really talk to you like a person. And then Grok is also another one, which is pretty cool because it does have great research, can create fun videos, and you can actually use it to just talk through your problems like a therapist. So I think Grok is kind of a unique tool to use. But for me, day in, day out, it's Claude with some Chat GPT in the background. All right. So I know everyone here is doing 100 different things, and you'd love to be able to get more time back in your day. And so I want you to think beyond using a large language model as Google. And I think a lot of people start there, but it's really not giving you the best bang for your buck. So I'm going to broaden your horizons a little bit and show you some ways that you could do a lot of different activities, not just content creation, which I know is a big piece of why we're using it, but there are tools that can create image generation just from text, or you can actually put on your microphone and talk into it and tell it what you want to do. There's tools that can create videos for you. It can replace a content creator or be your editor of something. It can also be a grant writer for you, and it does a pretty darn good job of that. I love the tools for my strategic advisor, and I'm going to show you how that works, but these are just highlights. Data analysis, you're going to be blown away when you see what it can do with a prompt and some data. Research agent, I saw some people are using it for research and strategy. That's actually great. I think that's now taking one of the large part of us. So we've got people 31% using research. And then it can become a true team member for you, whether that's agent or what I'll do today is to help you kind of create custom GPTs or Claude projects to act as almost mini agents for you. A lot of times I hear, you know what? It's great, but I'm having to kind of go back and forth with it. It's really not giving me what I want. It's giving me maybe generic output. So here's the deal. The problem isn't the tool. The problem is you. The problem is how we speak to it. So prompting, which many people have heard here, prompting is the way that we communicate with AI. And what you say and how you say it really matter. In fact, there are studies that show by doing well-crafted prompts, you can increase your editing time, or rather decrease your editing time by 70%. So I'm going to share with you a really important prompt formula, and this becomes how you speak to AI. So there's one acronym called CREATE. I've kind of abbreviated it, but you can use CREATE. I call it CRAT. Nice, but and it stands for content, role, action, and output. So what do I mean? For content, when you go to pull up your ChatGPT or Claude, it's like, how can I help you today? So you're going to tell it, one, you're going to tell it what you want it to do. You're going to tell it what's their role? Who are they? You're going to give it background information, and then you're going to tell it what you want to get out of it. Now that sounds kind of esoteric, but I'm going to show you an example. So here's a prompt formula in action. So this prompt formula says the role, and when you see these, I actually want you to write in role. Role. So what are you? Tell it what you want it to be for you. In this instance, you're a seasoned expert at corporate partnership marketing and have 30 years in the nonprofit space. So I'm very specific. You can even say you're a Madison Avenue advertising firm that, grows large brands. You are a, Alex Ramosi of sales and marketing. You can give it a very specific role. Tell it who you want it to be. You're an expert grant writer. What's your task? You are going to write compelling cold outreach to a potential corporate partner requesting a meeting to discuss alignment. So that's the task I'm telling it to do. The context. So here's the organization. So I'm using an organization called Sky Precious Kids. This is your organization. Go to their website. So you can go to my website, and you're reaching out to companies that have supported or expanding opportunities for the disability community and that serve Metro Atlanta. Context. Your goal is to ask for a meeting. So what is the output? What is it going to look like? I don't want a report, right? I want an email. So the email should be friendly, professional, not sound like AI wrote it. I'd like to keep it under 150 words. I also put in here, don't use M dashes. If anyone knows what M dash is, if you use AI, there's that little dash that breaks up a sentence. So they're called M dashes. I put that in there. Don't use M dashes or emojis. And then provide, this is another output, provide 5 headlines that I'd like to increase my open rate. Ask me questions. All right, so I'm going to show you this now. Should I do this here? Let's see, screen share. Knock myself out of here. All right, so sorry about that hiccup. But so now you can see that we've got role, task, this just as I described to you. Ask me questions. So I put it in here, and it says, I can't access the website. So I said, go to this website. I wrote it out clearer. And then it's giving me my subject lines. Here's my 5 subject lines. It's giving me the emails, or the actual email. And it says, I'm reaching out from Sky Precious Kids, a Georgia nonprofit caring for children in financial crisis. Through programs that cover medical costs, home accessibility, educational support, we help families stay. Did you lose me?
Yes, there you are.
Okay.
You're back.
All right. What did we miss?
You were going through the results of
Okay.
of your prompt. I think we got most of that. So
okay. All right. So we're going to keep going. So that's an example of prompt formula in action. This prompt formula is so important. Absolutely so important for you. Here's another example of just doing an appeal. So you can see role, task, context, output. Make sure when you're inputting and working with AI that you're using these. So again, I'm telling it what I want. You're a nonprofit fundraising expert with the ability to write compelling, non-pushy appeal letters. So this is important with the ease of a Madison Avenue firm. So you're going to create a series of 6 emails. So this gives you the idea, right? And so I'm using Family Promise, one of my, favorite clients here, to convey, but I'm putting food pantry in here. So this is again an example of a prompt. Here's a great trick. If you don't know how to put a prompt in, you are actually able to ask AI for the perfect prompt. So if in doubt, use AI to be able to help you.
there we go. Now just go to the tab you want to share there.
Oh, yep. Okay, here we go. So let's say I'm in ChatGPT, and I'm going to tell it you are an expert prompt engineer. I don't have to have good grammar. Your task is to write a prompt for a nonprofit to create a monthly donor campaign for, and we could name your nonprofit, right? So I'll do family promise of North Fulton DeKalb. And it's going to ask me more, but and it might ask me, so I can just literally create it. And it's going to ask me some more, and it will say, here we go, highly converting. And then I can copy and paste. It's just going through. I can copy and paste all of this into my chat to deliver my prompt. So this is another great example of how it can work. So a lot of people use it for content, and we're going to focus on content for a minute. But one of the really interesting things is beyond what I think a lot of people do with AI, which is using it to maybe create a draft. You're asking it to, I want to do an email, and here's a donor, right? And I want you to be able to help me write a letter to this donor. This is the donor information, do an initial draft. Or a lot of people go in and they have a letter and they put it into ChatGPT and they use the prompts. You are an expert at writing an email. Your task is to be able to edit this letter to create emotionally resonant letter to a donor that's personal. Revise your output is that you're going to revise this email. That's a great way, right, for people to do that. I think a lot of people do that. Improve my writing, create a draft for me. But the other kind of really interesting things that you can do to use this is to be able to actually help it uncover some blind spots or test it. One of the things that I do is I will put a letter in ChatGPT or Claude, and I will actually ask it to review my letter and act like my coach and tell me what my tone is for my letter, or critique my letter for clarity. I've put a PowerPoint in ChatGPT and Claude, and I've asked it to review the PowerPoint and say, this PowerPoint is going to be presented to nonprofit leaders. Please look at the flow of the PowerPoint, and please tell me where I might need to add slides, or please tell me where it doesn't make sense. So this is another great way to use it to be really kind of like a strategy or analysis coach for you. The other place that you can use ChatGPT or Claude, I'm saying that is for analysis. So we're going to jump over there in a moment, and I'm going to show you some really neat things for analysis. In our worlds, we've got lots of different people that we interact with. We've got our board members, we've got our team, we've got donors, we've got prospective donors. So another way to use the tools or to actually give it a role as a certain persona. Could be a board member. You can actually give it a real persona, and I'll share with you how I've done that before. But here's an example of how you can use the tool to fine-tune your writing for a certain segment. Now, my example is you're a potential first-time donor for charity XYZ. Your role is to review this appeal letter and identify any unclear sections or missing motivational elements. This will be sent to all of my contacts. And so I'm asking it to take a role. And it might be like, well, I don't really understand what you do, or it's going to go back and forth. I've taken my letter. Actually, I've taken an RFP. So there was a proposal for a potential nonprofit. And I said, I am meeting with these people. And I took their LinkedIn profile. So I went to LinkedIn, I copied their links and said, I am meeting with these 3 people. And they were different backgrounds. This is my proposal. Can you read it? So I'm giving them the role. Can you read it and be each person and critique it and tell me what information I may need to add to my proposal to be able to help me be able to, tell my story better to this audience. And it will go and it will look out at their LinkedIn profile. It said For example, this person has a background in finance. You need to do more storytelling with your numbers and give concrete examples. So it's really, really incredible how it not just is a content writer for you, but it can actually come out and be another, analyzer. This is one of my favorite things. Now, you can do research and you can do data analysis. So many of us have, CRMs, or we're keeping contact with all of our donors, or on a spreadsheet. So you've got data, but not a lot of insights. So caveat here, do not do what I'm about to tell you when you have a free version of any of these large language models. You absolutely must do this with a paid version. So I've asked it to go in and understand the be a financial analyst and look at donor data and analyze opportunities, lapsed donors, all of it. And so I will put this in as a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet. I've used Claude. So this is fictitious data. This is a report that it produced, an action item. This was actually, it produced like 4 reports for me, but it said, here's your total donors. Here's your number of donors for fourth quarter, year over year. Here's the total revenue. Here's the full year summary. It prioritized lapsed donors. It gave me all lapsed donors for fourth quarter, upgrade opportunities, gifts for cultivation. This was all done on a prompt using ChatGPT or Claude, paid versions. But it is incredible what it can actually do. Absolutely incredible. Now, I'm going to give you another example of a way it can be your research assistant. So I'm going to click over here for a moment, and I'm going to show you within each large language model.
Hey, Carolyn.
Within each large language model, there are different modes. So this is Claude. ChatGPT has the same thing. This little plus button down here is really important, because when you plus, this is where you add files. You can do that. You can change. Do you want a web search? There's a research and deep research tab in both ChatGPT and Claude. So when you click on it, it actually goes and does an expanded search for you. It digs in deeper. It uses more tokens, which is its way of actually like consuming and using the AI behind the scenes. But when you click research and you give it a prompt, it will run not just for a minute, but it can run for 20 minutes on your computer. I mean, it's pretty crazy. So I've used research, and I gave it a really, really simple prompt. A really simple prompt. Let me see if I can find my last one here, where I asked for food insecurity. Here's my prompt. I didn't even use my formula. You're creating a market analysis of food insecurity landscape in Metro Atlanta and need to understand what government programs, both state and federal, are operating, as well as an in-depth review of nonprofits serving this community and their services and what gaps exist. This information is vital to helping develop new programs. So I ran it. This was a report that it came back in about 5 or 6 minutes. Here's my executive summary. It tells me if you can see this, the insecurity rates, federal food programs, all of this, Georgia state programs, the ecosystem of Metro. And then I went back and I asked it to give me like a list of other food pantries. So it started pulling other food pantries in here, DeKalb County, Cobb County, and the list goes on. I can take this and then add an additional prompt that I tell it to return a table for me of the nonprofits that are operating in this space. And in that table, I would like their name, their website, their annual revenue, and a contact person. And it will run that research behind the scenes and do that. It's really, truly incredible what this can do. And it's, again, adding so much time to my day. Now it's up to me to take that information and start to make action items from that. But it's doing a lot of research for me. So do we think that's cool? It's kind of a cool thing, right? Now, one of the big complaints is, I don't feel like AI really is really bringing my voice into it. It sounds generic, and that very much can be, can be. So one of the things that I always recommend for nonprofits is to create your own voice, your brand voice. And now that we're on Zoom or, Teams all day long, you can get transcripts of how you speak, right? So we all have these, you get a transcript. What I would recommend is creating your own Claude or ChatGPT and use your prompts and ask it to create your brand voice. Here's what you do. You're going to gather some great content, great content. You're going to be able to pull in maybe a transcript, right, from one of your AI, assistants. You can pull in some emails that you wrote. Maybe you wrote a piece, you did a blog, put it all in there. Give you great examples of content and upload it, right? We can attach it. And then you run a style analysis. Again, if you don't know how to do the prompt, you can go in and actually ask it. I want to create my own brand voice. Give me a prompt that will do that. And then it will actually generate a brand voice document for you. This is kind of an example of what it did for me. So I put in all of my, information here, and then it said, okay, what's my tone? So it gave me my tone. I'm warm, I'm professional and collaborative, right? My formality. I'm casual enough to feel human. On my structure, I'm very direct, which if you know me, that's not a shocker. How do I talk? In my content style. So it gave me this. I then took that information, I put it into Word, and then I uploaded it into my GPT and said, use this brand voice anytime you're writing for Carolyn or for Momentum One. So this is and you could do this for different team members. You could do this for your company. You might have a more structured brand voice for your brand versus if you're the executive director or development director. So this is a great way to take AI's output and move it from being more generic to really talking like you and being a team member for you. So that's something that I find very, very helpful. All right. So I feel like this is a little bit of a lie because it's how can you gain hours in your week? For me, truth be told, I don't know that it's me gaining hours in my week as much as me doing more work, but I think that it gives you a lot more capacity. And if you have self-restraint, then you can gain the hours and go do something fun. For me, I just do more work, but I think it's a great tool. And there's not a nonprofit leader that's out there that says, gosh, I have so much free time in my day, right? Like this doesn't happen in our world. You're wearing 100 hats and you're doing a lot of different things. So I'd say that to say it really can really help you build your AI team, empower your team. So what do I mean by your team? We're going to dive in real quickly to things called custom GPTs or Claude projects. These are like expert little agents or focused ways for you to build your AI team by doing things that you do all the time. Maybe it's a appeal writer, maybe it's a meeting note taker, but it does it in a way that you create like little projects that are helping you with these repeatable tasks to be able to help you save time and money. As we go into this, one thing to know, and a lot of people do this when they're, opening up Claude, they're kind of using a very general way to talk about it. They're, using just the chat without creating these custom GPTs or Claude. So you're kind of acting like a generalist. You don't want a Swiss Army knife here of your tools. You want to actually develop your team with domain expertise. And you'll see what I'm talking about now. So we want to go away from broad knowledge to be able to tailor it to do specific tasks. So what are some examples that you can do to be able to create your Claude project or custom GPT? Well, let's think about content. Like what are the things you do all the time? Maybe it's Facebook post generator, maybe it's LinkedIn, whatever your social is that you do. You can have an appeal writer that knows you and knows your nonprofit's work. You could actually do a grant writer proposal. Maybe it's an impact reporter. So these are all great examples of things that you can do. There's so much power in creating these. There's studies that show that it increases your productivity by 45%. Oh my gosh, like who doesn't have or want that back? It increases output. And that's where I lay. It increases my output a lot by 3x. I think for me, a lot more. And when you do these custom GPTs, when you add your brand voice, the quality goes up dramatically, absolutely dramatically. So how do you start thinking about this, right, as a leader? So again, think about the tasks that you do over and over again. Social media, that's a great way, right? If you're always on Facebook and you're writing it, you can actually get it to start creating your post for you. Now, it's not going to go out and post, although there are tools. We will not get to them on here to do that. But to be able to learn how how do you speak? What's your social media look like? How do you do that? So, and I'll share a little bit how you build these GPTs. But grant writing components, right? These are all repeatable tasks. So again, the same way that you looked at building your brand voice, you're going to want to be able to kind of gather your materials. So if we're talking about Facebook, you're going to go and create a whole kind of content library of here's how in the past here's our most successful Facebook posts. Copy and paste them into a Word document, maybe even some unsuccessful ones. Organize it, label it. Here's some images. Here's the content, here's the things that we like to talk about. And then you're going to create a library in there. So, and I'm actually going to show you how to do this. So you create it all, and then you upload your supporting documents. So here's the step-by-step. And so I'm going to show you, and then I have it here. So when you ask me and you send you the slide, you can kind of see the step-by-step. I'm going to go back to my friend Claude because I like Claude. I like both, but so Claude, when you look at Claude here, come into Claude. So I'll just do, this is most normally, if you have paid, you'll get, good afternoon, Carolyn. It's so lovely, isn't it? Tells me, it says hello to me. And then here's a plus. I can just do a chat, right? This is just a basic chat. But what if I have some things that I've identified that I want to do over and over again? So here, there's a word projects. So I click on projects. So I've got expert note taker, research analyst, appeal creator, proposal development. So I click on new project. I can tell it what project I'm working on. So we'll just develop one of these right now. Appeal writer. It says, I'm going to nonprofit. You are writing end of year appeals for nonprofit. Gotta spell it right. X, right? And I create a project. Simple enough. So this is where it gets interesting. So if I look at instructions here, see this plus? So my instructions are what's called system instructions or system prompts. This is where I'm going to tell it to all the instructions I want it to follow to be able to create a project. Now that may sound daunting, but here's the reality. You can go into your chat and say, I am creating a Claude project or custom GPT to write my appeal letters for the end of the year. This is what I want. Emotional, appeal letters. I don't want them to be too long. I want them to tell a transformational story. I would like it to be able to have, multiple calls to action. So think about like as if you were training someone, what would you tell it that you want them? How should they write an appeal letter? And then you go out and you say, create a prompt for me that I can use for my Claude project. It will create a massive system instruction for you, and you copy and you paste it and you put it right in here. Then you put all your files in here. So your files are all those great examples. Here's appeal letters that we did before. Here's my most successful ones. Here's my case for support. Here's some emotional stories I have about the work that we're doing. Here's a past annual report. Here's my goals for my end of year campaign. And then you put it in there. And this becomes all of your background. So then it says, how do you help you? You are going to write, your task is to write an appeal letter, for, beginning in November. And it will then create, and it will be there for you till the end of days. So here, like I will show you like see if this, So this is appeal letter. This is how I've created it. Now, this is an example of my prompt. And you can see I've put it all in here. Emotionally resonant. I want 3 calls to action. Here's my format. I don't want it to be more than 275 words. Best practices. Do not use M dashes. I always yell at it and tell it that. I didn't create this prompt. Carolyn did not sit here and write this. I asked Claude to write me the system prompt. And then I put files in here. And I even put some files, which is really cool. I'm like, you know what? There's some great resources out there. I'm going to pull some of these other tools in here to use just to help me out. And then I let it rip. So it's really, really pretty crazy to think about like what you can do. I use my note taker all the time, all the time. So, and again, my system prompt is, you're an executive assistant. Well, blah, blah, blah. You can see all my grammatical errors in here. It doesn't matter. It's not going to judge my bad grammar, but I put it in there. And so now what I do is I always go in, and after any meeting notes, I take the transcription, I dump it in here, and it gives me incredible meeting notes. So this is, again, a way for you to set it up. So it's just what I've just walked you through. Do this for a bunch of tasks. So you will create separate ones over and over again. These Claude projects or these custom GPTs will be your team. And you can do the same thing for ChatGPT. It's called a custom GPT, and I can show you that at the end if you have time, but it's the same function. You go in, you give it a system prompt, you can ask it to write your prompt, you give it background information, you call it what it is, and then instead of creating a new ChatGPT, or instead of going in and just asking it, you go to your custom GPTs or your Claude projects and you use it over and over again. So LinkedIn post creator, I've used this many times. Appeal writer GPT. So you're going to give it the background information. Grant writer. Now let's talk about this for a second. There's a lot of information that you do over and over and over again when you write grants. So what if you took your best grants and you added that, right? You put that in and you added that as content, and you added that as, your attachments. Here's your case for support. Here's information about your programs. Here's your budget. Here's like 5 examples of grants that you really were proud of, and you put it in there. Then you can go in and you can say, here's the RFP from Foundation XYZ, copy and paste it. Your task, you're an expert grant writer. Your task now is to write a proposal to correspond with this RFP. And then you can use your database, ask me questions, and it will go and start quickly generating a grant, an actual proposal for you. One of the other cool things that I do, just as kind of a little tip, is that I will go in and I will say, if it has all of your information, right? It's got who you are, you put it all in there. And then I will copy and paste a request for proposal in the chat. And I will say, review this request for proposal against the work that we do with this charity. Tell me why it would be aligned or what we would need to do to be a better candidate. So again, this is more of like my advisor. So I ask it to compare and contrast the actual RFP to the work that we're doing. And it will say, well, you're strong here, but it's really, it's really looking to make sure that we're focused on this county. You haven't mentioned that. I'm like, oh, okay, we need to make sure that we bring that forward. Or it's really looking at, let's say, it's focusing on single moms. You haven't mentioned anything about single moms. Like, oh, well, that's a really important part of our population. I need to emphasize that. So it's going to be a great checker for you to, again, deliver a better proposal. So it can not only be a writer, but once you have it written, it can be able to go and help you make sure that you're delivering the best product. Again, at the same time, though, it's human in the loop, right? Absolutely human in the loop. You are going to be able to, you have to have eyes on it. You have to read it. You know best. You know best. So once you create your custom GPTs and you've gone through this, you've got to be able to go back in, you've added your information, revise it. Maybe you've got a really great grant that you wrote, add it to your database. I'm just using it as an example. You had a wonderful post, copy and paste it in. It takes continuous revision. So you just want to make sure you do that. Maybe you've changed how you talk about your programs. Add that language in, take out old. So this is really just kind of talking about, how do we avoid the pitfalls? We've kind of gone over that. So for you today, I would say walk away from this and think about, like, what are a few tasks that you can tackle, and that you can do over and over again. So start small, test it out, kick the tires. You're learning this, but start and document. And then once you get one, expand. It really can help you save time. So I'm going to give you a couple tools now that I love to share, and then we'll kick it over to a few questions. And I think you will kind of be wowed by some of these. This is just to show a few. Okay. So this is ChatGPT. We all know ChatGPT, but ChatGPT has an image generator. So this was my prompt. Create a photorealistic image of a hungry family with an empty shopping cart and a father looking into an empty wallet. Their faces are sad. This was my prompt. It wasn't even a fancy prompt. Look at that image it generated for me. Now, how did I get there? I went to GPT. I used my plus, and it said create image. So I used create image, and then I put it in. And style, it can give you different styles. Now it's got some crazy stuff. If you want like a real image that looks like a picture, I say photorealistic. You could actually even give it images that you want it to copy. A lot of times, we have this great appeal, or we have something, but we don't have the right image. And so then we're stuck using fuzzy images or whatever. And you could even put in there, like, a lot of people use stock photos. So I know people sometimes are hung up on, well, I have an AI image that was generated, but we use stock photos. I would say, you can put, representation of our client. But this is a great tool. Another tool, this is, I do not like PowerPoints. This is called gamma.app. This is really pretty cool. It lets you create a PowerPoint from a prompt. So you click on generate and describe what you'd like to make. I can say I want web content. I want a presentation. I would like to create a PowerPoint about momentum one consulting. Put my all right, and I'm just going to generate. And then it works. And then it actually gives me the cards and the outline here. And then I can then say, okay, do I want concise? Do I want detail? Do I want, what's my kind of text to be? What color do I want? Right? Do I want image style? I want photo, right? It's all of this. And then I can hit go and it's going to create it. So that's Gamma AI. It's absolutely insane for creating things. So that's one piece I want to share. And then just lastly, if you've never used loom.com, Loom is kind of a cool way that you can actually, it will screen share, and you can create, let's say you are training someone and you want to show how you're getting into a file, or you want to like repeat how you go through a step. Maybe it's in your CRM. You can go into Loom, you can get a free account and you hit record, and then it will actually record it, and you can share that video with your teammates. So those are just a couple really cool tools that I like to use. There's plenty more, but I want to be mindful of our time and make sure that there's any questions that you might have. So thank you so much for listening. Sorry for my technical backgrounds. I'm great at AI and apparently not good at screen sharing.
Carolyn, this is absolutely amazing. Just a few things. Guys, feel free to put the questions that you have in the chat. I actually have a couple of things. First off, I love the CRAT, or the create model. I feel like if you're just doing that, if that's the only thing that you get out of this, your responses are going to be just so much better. I love the concept of projects. and kind of custom GPTs. We did some of that for our app for a good cause. Is now when you're in the building your donation page, you can slide out a custom tool that we made under a project like that to help you write your copy for your donation page or for your thank you email. So this is such good stuff. I'm curious on the data analysis example that you showed. You showed that great spreadsheet that made that really in-depth report. I'm curious about the prompt for that. You said you loaded a spreadsheet. Was that just transactional data, and kind of what was the prompt that go with that to give you to say, okay, this is, give me my lapsed donors, and give me, how did you prompt that to do that kind of really in-depth analysis there?
Right. So a couple things. One is I took, so I had to think about, again, we're here thinking like we're using AI to support our work, not do our work. So I was like, what do we want to get at? Right. So, we were like stressing about like lapsed donors for this client. Like, they hadn't done any, great stewardship before. So we wanted to be able to understand lapsed donors, but we also wanted to look for signals in our donor database of maybe people that had a higher level of engagement that they had missed, right? Like who's more engaged, who should. So that was part of the prompt, was like analyze it. And so it was a really simple prompt. Use the formula. You are an expert financial analyst. You understand, nonprofit fundraising. Your task is to review this data. And, I made sure the data was clean, right? So I had name, date, right? So that's important because it was just jibber jabber, right? It's not, you're not going to be able to get anything out of it. But I made sure the headings were clear, right? And I said, review this year versus last year, look at the dates, review them, and then tell me who's lapsed. Tell me how much money that was worth. So even just taking that in a snapshot was like, hey, you've got lost info, you've got these lapsed donors, and this is worth $35,000, say, right? And if you were able to reactivate 50% of them, great. Like, and so how do we do that? Show me this. And so it was really a simple prompt. But again, like going in, use what I've told you to actually create your own prompt.
Right.
Ask it, I am struggling. This is my prompt. Make it better. Like, this prompt stinks. How do I do that? I do that all the time.
Yeah.
And you can see I get lazy. I type, it doesn't care that I'm going fast, and I type it. Someone asked about data privacy. Is it Kyla? Remember, I said, make sure that you have a paid version. Do not put your donor data into a free version because it will train on it. So paid versions, they actually have limited, they do not train on your data. They don't hold your data in memory. It doesn't go anywhere, so it's yours.
I'm curious.
Gamma so sorry, I'm looking here. Gamma is free, but you can get a paid version of it, and it's not part of Claude.
Yeah, I'm curious about cost. I mean, we're talking about paid plans. What should a nonprofit budget for something like this? Maybe they're a small nonprofit, small team, 10 or less employees. Like, what's the typical budget, and where would you put your money? Claude, ChatGPT, where would you put your money, and how much would you be spending per month?
I think you have to look at your tech stack, right? Like what you're going to be using it for. And so I would start with picking one, right? And so it could be $20 for a user. You could have a team one where it, builds it up a little bit. It's not totally onerous, especially if you think about how much time it's saving you. So if you go and say, it's costing us $50 a month because we have 2 users, and some people use, I didn't say this, use an admin login. I didn't say that, but you can, but so people might share it, or you create, you have a pro plan. So you've got 2 seats. It's not a lot, right? It's not a lot. And there are free versions out there. So maybe you take one where it's like, this is your paid version, right? And then you're going to put all your personal stuff in there, right? And that this is yours, but you might want to, I play around with Grok and Perplexity. I don't have paid versions of those, but I have paid versions of ChatGPT and Claude. So that's where, I feel, and I have a Gamma paid version for, what I'm doing. I use Loom for free. I have a paid version of an Read AI software so that it takes notes for me, and it takes, gives me all the transcripts. And so I like that, but I still take it and I put it into my Claude note taker because it's great and formatted how I like it. And then I can even share the notes with clients or, with anyone else that's been in the meeting. So I like that.
Yeah, Paul makes a point here. If you can't find $100 per user, you might be doing it wrong. But if you're following Carolyn's tips here, I think you're probably going to get more than, like you said, that $20 a month that you might
Oh
be
my goodness.
spending. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Question from Roy: if an AI image creates that image, do you own that?
So that's a good question. You know what? I don't want to steer you wrong. You are able to. There's been a whole fuzzy about licensing rights because it's AI generated and it's not. So there aren't really licensing rights. So, um, the way generative AI is, it's not going to necessarily iterate your same image for someone else, right? Because it's generative and you gave a very specific prompt. So that's very highly, highly unlikely that you're going to create the image, especially, by the way, if you have paid, it's yours, but that it's going to use that image somewhere else. So there's been a little fuzzy, so I don't want to steer you wrong, Roy, but it is, you have the ability to use it. I did work with an organization that worked with human trafficking, and they had a really tough time having any images. They had sadly a girl's back, right? But that's not, we know, like looking at someone's face, that's going to drive emotional, why people give is emotion. So how can we do that? And we put disclaimers, this is a representation of, a child that was rescued in Guatemala.
Yeah. And one last question here. Kyla had kind of a follow-up, which I think, you're talking about the paid plans don't train on your data, but do you trust, these platforms? I guess, kind of what the question is you are sharing things with them. You have to trust them that they will keep that secure. Yeah.
So here's the thing, like anything else we know, right? Like things can be hacked. I mean, how many times have we gotten, hi, your credit, your social security number is part of a data breach, right?
Sure.
So yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say it could never happen, but because there's memory in this, like it disappears, a lot of the memory, and it's not shared. It's your own contained universe. So it is not shared. So could there be some cyber attack down the road? Lord, I don't know the answer to that, but I do feel very confident in that. Absolutely feel very confident in that right now, how they exist.
Yeah.
You have to be comfortable though. And if you feel comfortable more de-identifying donor data and putting it in there, taking the names out and just, giving them a code, A, B, C, D, E, asking it to give a code instead of names.
Mhm.
I would do that. And then but then you would have to have a key that donor A, or at least column A, is representative of, so you'd have to code your donors maybe in a different way. But I think that would be, a way to get around it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. She's saying
yeah,
not
but no
not
one,
about
so
the
Kayla, no
hacking.
one,
Yeah. Who owns it? Yeah.
yeah. Is it Kyla or Kayla? Sorry, I don't want to mispronounce your name, but they don't own your data. So, if when you put your donor data in your paid version, it is yours. No one has access to those. You're a closed system.
Absolutely. Carolyn, I know you wanted to drop a final question for
Yeah,
everybody.
thank you.
And this is really just kind of just having everybody think about what they're going to do from here, or what's one thing that you identified today that you think that you can work on. I'm also on the right. I'm going to drop a little handout from Carolyn. If you want to work with her, you need more help in the AI space, this has her information and you can reach out there. Grant writing is taking the lead here on
Love it.
what
I
they're
love
going
it.
to
I
do
love it.
first off. So
Grant writers are going to get mad at me. So no, thank you so much. And appreciate the time. And if you're interested in, understanding more about how we work with nonprofits, certainly to help raise funds, that's our sweet spot. We like to help you grow and do more. And we're also working with you to implement AI. So thank you so much, Ronald. It's a great opportunity to be here and just really appreciate everyone and all you do.
really appreciate you being here. Thanks for everybody taking the time. If we didn't get to any questions, I will be sharing all the questions with Carolyn so she can follow up with anybody. I should get the recording out tomorrow or by Monday. Just thank you for being here. Thanks for what you're doing in your community. Thanks, Carolyn. We will talk on the other side, I'm sure, and have more things to collaborate on. And just for everybody here, we got another great webinar coming up next month. It's going to really be talking about donor retention and that very weighty subject. So we hope that you're following our newsletter and we'll check in with us again. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.